shadows of the night. Code takes flight, functions, modules by our side. Dagger's here to guide, building dreams with every line. Cargo's decide, cubevert for the home lab sky. Cat's vision stands high, every code we write in the home lab light. With Dagger's guiding might, Cargo takes its flight. Velvet cloud hypervisor makes us wiser. In Cat's realm we aspire, chasing digital fire. Building dreams with every line. Cargo's decide, cubevert for the home lab sky. Cat's vision stands high, every code we write in the home lab light. With Dagger's guiding might, Cargo takes its flight. Every code we write in the home lab light. With Dagger's guiding might, Cargo takes its flight.
Hello, and welcome back to the Raw Code Academy. I'm your host, David Flanagan, also known across the internet as Raw Code. Today, we're going to take a look at Daggerizing, and by Daggerizing, obviously isn't a word, we're going to use Dagger to build or augment or enrich pipelines and existing open source projects to see if we can make their lives a little bit easier. And today, we're taking a look at a project called Kargo, and I have the pleasure to be joined by a friend and the maintainer, Kat. Hey, how are you? You're on mute.
See, you had that music playing, and I was like jamming out, and I was like, I gotta mute this, and now I look like a fool. No, I'm super excited to be on with you. I know we've kind of been running in parallel paths across the interwebs, and we finally actually get to do something, so that's cool.
Yeah, we both seem to like a lot of the same technological stuff. So now we get to sit down and actually experiment and have some fun together, which is awesome. I did think we streamed once before, right? When I was at Equinix, I think.
Maybe. I'd have to go look.
My feelings aren't hurt. It's okay. It's not a tear.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Oh. I swear I will remember this one. Like you had music for like custom lyrics with Kargo. How'd you do that? That's so cool.
I have been experimenting with AI music, and I'm going to do some videos on it because it's so freaking cool right now. And it's so inexpensive to do and so quick. I can't believe it. But yeah, that was the first time we've ever used an AI opening music, and it was customized for Dagger, Kargo, and you, which was awesome.
Right? I thought so. Thank you. Okay.
All right. Look, for anyone who is not familiar with you, can you give us a little bit of a TLDR on who you are and what you've been up to?
Good God. Okay, so TLDR version. I am a nerd on the interwebs and nerding out with everyone on platform engineering and DevOps, GitOps, all those fun opsy things. Kind of climbed through the ranks a little bit at a time professionally, just going from being a Linux nerd to actually getting to apply that knowledge in support roles. And then kind of growing up from there into OpenStack and Kubernetes from, along the career path from Canonical, Dell Canonical and Red Hat there. And then since leaving those larger companies, kind of carrying those skill sets around to a few different startups, including some professional work in the KubeVirt space, which we're going to be playing in a little bit today. So And then like now we're full on in like the coding world with Dagger and other code powered IAC tools and things like that. So kind of getting further into like software dev like ops work, which I feel like is a really cool progression, and we're probably going to see that more and more as AI lowers the barrier to entry there. And so hopefully today helps, other supercharge other people along their trajectory as well.
Awesome. Yeah, you're right. We are totally in the heyday of as code. I write my infrastructure in Terraform CDK, deploy it with OpenTofu, which I'm not sure if I'm even legally allowed to do, but screw it. And we've now got Dagger for our pipelines. Like these days, you never have to leave your code editor and your language servers. Like everything is just right there. So yeah.
I have gotten so attached to VS Code, and it still feels wild to me that like VS Code and GitHub are Microsoft things, and I'm in love with it somehow. Yeah, it's a different world now than when I entered the tech scene for sure.
Yeah, if you had asked 20-year-old me if I'd be using Microsoft developer tools, I'd be like, fuck no. And here we are. I'm using Copilot, VS
Exactly.
Code, everything. Unbelievable. But that's a testament to Microsoft, right? They've changed their whole mentality. They're doing good things and they're helping developers. Like I've got nothing but good things to say about Microsoft in 2020 plus. So,
Exactly.
all right. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Microsoft or AI or cool music. We're here to do some Dagger stuff. And we're going to be doing
Yes.
some Dagger pipelines for Kargo. So, can you tell us a little bit about what Kargo is?
Sure. Okay, so Kargo, not to be confused with the Argo CD land stuff, was named several years ago before those products came out. And it's named after the concept of an aircraft carrier, if you will. I think in French, cargo actually is a word that they use for that sometimes. And the concept is we're building a platform that is from the ground up a PaaS that's built on Kubernetes, can run containers, virtual machines, the works. We're looking at WASM in the future as well, because that's definitely a really hot item that is proving to be really valuable. So I'm looking for that whole roadmap. And right now, the whole deployment of the project is either manual CLI or really rudimentary GitHub Actions with a lot of like bash run and stuff like that in there. So kind of excited to see what the Dagger spin on all of this looks like.
Yeah, I am a little bit worried about this one just because there's so much container stuff going on, but we're going to give it our best shot and see what we can
Okay.
do with this. Just because, yeah, it's an interesting project to play with, but there's been some really good improvements with Dagger recently. And Marcos, one of the Dagger team members, has been showing off how to run like K3S inside of a Dagger pipeline and stuff like that. So, like, if we need to hook into any of that stuff, we're certainly going to go and grab those examples and steal them. But before we go to the code and share my screen and all that, you mentioned that you've got some GitHub actions, right? I just want to
Yes.
understand when we talk about Daggerizing a project, what we're saying is taking things that would typically live in a Docker compose.yaml, a just file, make file, CI pipelines, whatever they're using, any task associated with that project for CI, CD, or even local development environments, we want to be able to do that as code. And that's kind of what we want to do today is
Yep.
let's cover a few of those use cases, hopefully. So beyond the GitHub actions, and don't spend too much time getting into it because we will look at the code in a minute, but what else do we have? What kind of tasks are you running with your day-to-day working on Kargo?
Sure. I don't have CI tests yet on this code base. I have some in some related code bases that I intend to pull in. But I mean, you're looking for being able to authenticate against your cluster. In my case, that's actually a pretty weird topology because I'm using Talos stuff with Omni and it's all OIDC powered. So I don't even use my local network when I'm in my IDE. I'm all working in code spaces in the cloud, a VM somewhere in Azure. So we need all of that to work out really well here. I'm not entirely sure how we're going to set up the authentication within Dagger. I know that it's a few fairly simple commands on the CLI, so worst case scenario we can shell out. But I definitely have a number of questions there myself that we're just kind of going to unwrap and uncover.
Wow, talk about striking fear into me. I mean, normally on Rocco Live, I just sit here like this and go, yeah, show me a cool tick. And now today I need to type stuff, and you're mentioning OIDC and Talos and Omni, and I'm like, oh, fuck.
You know what? For the record, I did not twist your arm into this. This was voluntary, and I'm not being crazy or sadistic or anything here, right?
No, I think we're going to have some fun, and we're going to install some cool challenges and have a look at Dagger and see how we can use it. What we have is a Python project, and we can start to lay it in our code or Dagger pipelines as Python, as Go, as TypeScript, wherever we want, and we can just see how far we can push this thing.
Yep.
I think it's about time we start taking a look at some code, don't you?
Yes, let's dive in.
All right, so I have already cloned the project. I have made a couple of changes just because of my very weird setup. I do run Nixos, so I've had to modify your envrc and add a devenv environment just to get Python to exist in this thing.
Yep.
So I'm only going to run a devenv shell.
I use dev containers for all of this, which supplies a lot of the same tooling. So if we're hunting around for environment and integration, there's a big difference between how you're approaching it and my go-to. But that should actually be a neat way to really actually understand what's in the black box instead of just blindly running from a prepackaged starting line.
Yeah, I'm trying not to go straight into containers because Dagger itself uses build kit, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. So for the dev container that I run, like I routinely run Docker commands with it. I use kind Kubernetes for a lot of the in development testing, things like that. So it's fully compatible and supports that Docker CLI from within the container itself. I ran a couple Dagger commands and just kind of like the hello world stuff, which is obviously not highly complex. And things went well so far. Conductor is that dev container. It also is what I use to maintain Conductor. So it's literally maintaining Conductor in Conductor. So I think we should have the freedom to do all of that if we need to go there. But I'm also really curious how you set up all that. I used dependencies and you added some extra stuff. So I'm going to enjoy how that's all tied together.
Yeah. I only added one line, which is just this path add, which cool. You see me tweet about earlier because it was infuriating that this is a different macro.
So are both of those actual functions, or is it just camel case syntax?
Yeah, path add lowercase is when you want to specify a variable name. So maybe you've got like an alt path, and then you can add stuff to it.
Wow.
It's horrible.
That is not intuitive at all.
No, I lost an hour on that.
I don't know if I would have figured it out that fast. Bravo.
Yeah, so that's all I did, and that's just because I have Dagger locally. Again, Dagger's not available in the next package repository, and this is Nixos, so it's very hard for me to escape Nix. But the dev container is there, so if we need to open it, we will. But let's just try and get things started and take it from there. So
while you're warming up, I'm going to read through. We got a bunch of hellos here. So we've got Ravi from San Diego. We've got Marcos from Uruguay, and Felipe, Jeremy, Sam, Russell. Hello, all of you.
Yeah. Oh, there's Marcos, who I was talking about as well. So hey, thank you for joining. That means we've got help when we need it.
Yes. Haha. Now we can proceed with confidence.
And some Dagger team as well. Awesome. Hello, everybody.
My voice level is low. Yeah, I'll turn that up a bit. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, Russell says your bamboo print screens are awesome. Yeah, they are
It,
awesome. I was
it
enjoying that.
was a lot of fun. It was a desperate attempt to hide a bunch of stuff when I was rearranging things in the house one day, and then I was like, I'm just keeping this. This is great.
All right, there's all the hellos. Thank you all for joining us. And definitely glad to see some Dagger folks in case the help is needed. So let's see. Now, you do have a make file.
I do. It is
It's
not
gnarly.
it is not well maintained right now because the project during the refactor has changed a lot. So I was going to wait for the refactor to kind of tidy up and then double check the make file. And I'm kind of tempted to go into task files anyway. But tell me, like, with the Dagger stuff, like, does Dagger end up replacing a lot of the logic that I have to painfully write in this make file syntax, or what are our options there?
Yeah, I mean, I've found with my own repositories and adopting Dagger, I don't even need just files, make files. I'm not writing bash scripts anymore. I'm pretty much just writing a Dagger task for everything, because the nice thing about it is cached exceptionally well at build kit via inputs and outputs. You know, like caching in any system.
Yeah,
And then they're composable. So like, you know, dependencies across tasks are very easy to tie together because it's just a function call at the end of the day. So applying that methodology to my pipelines, it's really hard to go backwards. And I still
yeah,
have a few
no,
repositories with a just file, but that's just because I've not got the time to sit down and write more Dagger right now. But the more I write, the happier I get for sure.
well, I mean, you mentioned make files and the bash scripts, and one of the reasons that those two go together so strongly is make files have very limited ability to maintain just inputs and outputs from different tasks in a make file. So that becomes like really, really difficult if you have to pass an output into something so that you're dynamically assembling the whole project. Um, so yeah, I have high hopes here that
Yeah.
this will merge into the project and be a long-lived bit of code.
Yeah. Plus you also get to say goodbye to phony. Like
Oh my gosh.
I've had 20 odd years of phony. I'm done with phony, so I don't want phonies anymore.
I've had half that and I'm still ready to be done with it.
All right. So you get this wonderful help target. And I think this would be the kind of starting point as we try to work out what to start with first, what to replace.
Yeah. I think as far as the steps here, the first thing we need to do is figure out our authentication. What we're doing in Kargo is using a number of different cloud services. At this point, it's starting to really add up because I'm using Pulumi IAC for the project at the moment. I have secrets all stored up in Pulumi. I'm using my Omni account over on the Sidero side of the house. And that's necessary for actually authenticating to the Kubernetes API the way that I use Talos. And then now, if we're using Dagger, that is another cloud account that we have to authenticate against. So I've added the token for Dagger to my GitHub Actions environment and my Codespaces environment. So that authentication should be an environment variable, but I don't even know how we go about just getting started to be able to run those basic authentication pieces if we want to start there.
Yeah, well, the Dagger token is 100% optional. It's a value add with Dagger Cloud. So everything that we
Okay.
do, we're going to start off locally.
Okay.
And then we'll start to work out how we can bring in, you know, like spinning up a kind cluster, for instance. Maybe we can get that done.
For sure.
Do you have any other tasks that aren't using Pulumi and
Um,
Talos?
yeah. So as far as the kind testing goes, we do have support in the IAC for switching between kind and Talos. Both are a little bit different in some of the components that they actually roll out, how those variables map. So we can set our IAC config to include that we are deploying to kind, and then we just need to get the kind clusters started. I do have in the hack directory, I have a kind config. So if we want, we can get that started. The kind task in Makefile also creates a couple of volumes that the config mounts into the kind cluster, just for making it easier to build and destroy kind clusters without re-downloading tons of images every single cycle. So if we want to start there, that is all local.
Okay. Right. So I'm just trying to understand the flow here.
Yeah.
So you've got two different avenues when you run your tests. One is against cloud infrastructure, which Pulumi provisions, and the other is against kind infrastructure, which Pulumi provisions. Is that correct?
Kind infrastructure that the Makefile provisions.
Well, we provision kind, but does Pulumi still deploy resources to that?
Yes, Pulumi still deploys to that based on the kubeconfig.
Okay,
So
cool.
both paths work off of the kubeconfig locally. So
yeah, so something we're going to want to do then is to obviously get our Dagger instantiated, right? We need the boilerplate so we can start putting things together. We can then look at writing some Pulumi tasks that can execute Pulumi commands. We'll start with something really simple, which is just Pulumi -- version. Then we'll try and bring in the kind component and see if we can get Pulumi to actually run against that. Now, you mentioned secrets, which does have, which has me also a little bit worried. Do we need secrets when working with the kind setup?
you know what? I don't. We do need to open the stack. I mean, we need to select the stack that we're using.
And that's using Pulumi Cloud, is it?
My state is currently stored in Pulumi Cloud. So Pulumi login and then Pulumi stack select and kind create cluster. Those are the three commands that we need to do before we actually start deploying.
So can let me just, where's the Pulumi code? Is that under, no, not stores?
Pulumi directory.
I don't have a Pulumi directory.
What branch are we on? You are on the actually, I don't have the right branch open in my VS Code. Hang on. Git checkout, raw code Dagger, IO CI/CD. Sweet. And the IC is in the Pulumi directory. Yeah, with a main.py in there. So if you look, I need to zoom in on this screen a little bit, but I can see.
I've only got the main branch.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a branch specifically for you in here. I don't know if you want to, how you want to carry over the environment stuff that you've done so far.
It'll be okay.
Okay. If you do git branch -a, you can copy paste the name of your branch over.
Oh, this one, okay.
Yep, there it is.
Okay, let's just dash, switch. I dashed you.
Yeah, main on this project is currently hugely behind the refactor. That was just instantiating all the pieces in the most rudimentary way so that I could see what I needed to turn into common patterns and simplify. And now I've been refactoring the whole code base to actually apply some consistent design and stuff like that. More reusable code, modular, and all that.
So I think the problem is, where's the get bit here? And nothing is staged. Why is this a new file? Right. Doesn't matter. Okay, let's go back to that switch command. Let's dash. Good. Switch. Apply my path add. And pop back over.
Pulumi directory right there.
Aha. Cool.
Yay. Okay.
All right, so this is Pulumi config stack. All right.
Yeah, and a lot of the logic in this IAC is targeted to be replaced with a Golang operator. So way more code to come in the future.
All right. So let's actually try and run a Dagger command. What are we? 25 minutes in and we haven't run a Dagger command.
We can do a hello world if you want, or...
Well, when we set up Dagger, we have to provide which SDK we want and where we want it to live. So we can keep it in a Dagger directory. Now, SDK-wise, are you wanting Golang, TypeScript, Python?
Yeah, let's go with Python. That is the language you're using for this generation of the project. So we can keep it consistent.
You've never seen me write Python. That's the challenge. We'll give that a moment. So that's just creating all the boilerplate that we need.
So little Dagger init here. We have the SDK. We have, I'm guessing we're getting a new directory out of this.
Yeah, it's going to create a Dagger directory with our first kind of Dagger function, Dagger task, which, we can start to make modifications to it. We can drop in some Pulumi containers. We can run Pulumi commands, and we'll just tackle the problems one at a time as we go.
Sure.
So we now have an initialized module. So what does that mean? Well, the first thing we get is just a dagger.json, which just tells us where the Dagger code lives, which is in the Dagger directory, and the SDK that we're using. So if we pop this open, we have our init.py, where we have a container echo function and a grep dir function. So that is the first two functions that we can run with the Dagger CLI.
Okay, so that with exec there on line 31 is, for example, just basically shelling out, running a bash command, right?
Yeah, and a container.
That's true. That is in a container.
So everything that Dagger does starts with a from statement, just like a Docker file. Okay. We can run from Alpine, we can run from Ubuntu, we can run from Nexus, we can run from Python, whatever you want. We then add mounted directories, we add caches, we add working directories, we can execute one or more commands. And all we're doing is just building up all the steps that we've been typically put in a bash or a makefile, but doing them in a containerized environment where we have very strong inputs and outputs, right? We know what goes into the container. It's then content addressable, and we know what comes out, and we can reference things from containers, and move them around, and do the juggly dance and all that without ever doing anything on the
host. That juggly dance. Okay.
What is Marcos saying? If you're using Python, you'd want to do Python venv. I already have a venv. I set it up with devenv. So we have a local Python virtual environment with UV, which is also installed all of the requirements.txt that are part of the project. So I don't think we'll need to specifically get its own VM for Dagger, although you are saying to run that in my Dagger directory.
So I am curious. I'm guessing we're going to be able to set environment variables in these containers, and I wonder, since we can do mounted directories and all of that, it should be reasonable to assemble everything so that credentials, kube configs, all of that manages to cross the boundary into the Dagger containers. But it might be just a tad tedious. I'm trying to think through how that's all going to go.
So there are ways to get secrets in to our Dagger containers in a secure fashion. Let's just start making some progress. Right? Let's see if we can run our first Dagger function. All right, so we've got a Dagger CLI. From here, we can call functions, we can list functions, everything that we need. If we do functions, it does some container stuff, and then it should give us a list of functions. Marcos says my editor seems happy. It's a little bit happy. It's obviously it's not picking up the DAG, so we may need to do a virtual environment just for this, but let's wait and see for now. So this is what's kind of cool about Dagger, is that everything in our function here, like Dagger can run functions in any language. So you can have functions in Python, we could have some in Go, we could have some in TypeScript. It puts it all into the container, builds it, and then gives us access to it. So now we could do a Dagger call. We could say container echo. And it wants a string argument, so we'll just say, oh, good. Well, I think I need to do dash string arg. Yeah. String arg. And you can see here that it's doing our container echo, and I don't see my echo, but it ran. I'm happy with it.
Cargo, container, echo, string, raw code. Yeah.
Lev is saying, okay, so pip install -e SDK. All right, we'll get to that. I mean, the Dagger pipelines are running right now. Our editor experience might not be ideal, but we'll tidy it up as we go. Now, let's just make sure that you're happy with what's actually happening here. So I want to just make sure that we can tweak this, you understand what's happening, and I'll take any questions along the way. If anyone watching has questions, fire away. So the other thing we can do here is we're just pulling, our container echo is just pulling from Alpine latest, right? But we could do Ubuntu 2204 because nobody ever updates beyond that, right?
So I'm curious if we want to do that, or if we want to use the conductor container that's specifically built for the project that does have all of the dependencies that might kind of speed us along.
Oh, I was just going to make a change to show you it, but you're right. Yeah, we should be using conductor too. But I just want to, we've got Ubuntu, and now I'm changing the command to apt. So if we run this again, apt raw code isn't going to do anything, but apt update should be able to run some update.
Oh, so Dagger call lets you actually append additional command arguments at that point?
Because this one is configured, this function has a string argument called string arg.
Okay, so it knows that it's looking for that argument.
Yeah, so there's our apt update, right? Now, if we change this to be at, trying to remember Python underscores, I usually do this in TypeScript, so it's camel case all the way, but we'll get there. So we can change this to apt command now. And let's get standard out. We actually want to see the output of this container.
Oh, look at that. Okay.
So now string arg will fail. It'll throw it into a container and give us an error message. But then we can add the apt command, and then we're starting to piece together a function that does what we want it to do with the arguments that we want, and that makes sense from a consumer point of view. So apt command update. Fingers crossed. Looks good. Should have picked a faster command, but still.
I feel like Marcos is over here. He's like the voice of VS Code. He's like, I'm not happy. This is your code editor speaking.
All right. Yes, editor's not happy. Thank you, Marcos. Let's fix that now then. Now that I've covered a little bit about how to get started with Dagger, and Jean-Luc is saying website's looking good. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that website's pretty cool. It's slick, and it's making me feel really insecure about my websites that are legitimately terrible.
Well, I mean, until a few months ago, a website to me was, a white background with black text, but I'm learning. So Lev earlier mentioned, so let's go into our Dagger directory. So this is its own Python project. It's got its own requirements.log. It's Py project. I'm not a Python person. I am really no idea what I'm doing. I don't have pip. So Lev, based on your comment, you said pip install -e SDK. Is that because the SDK has its own requirements, or am I installing that into my existing VNV? Do I need a new VNV? Maybe we should have used TypeScript. Well, in fact, you know Python, right? What would you do with a Py project.toml?
Okay, so I know Python in terms of IAC, and have not used PyProject HOML configs before.
All right.
So the blind are currently leading the blind.
Okay, the SDK has the bindings. So does that mean I can just go to my requirements.txt here? Can I just add a local Dagger? Is that a thing? I know
Not that I'm aware of, but it would be cool if it was.
I'm waiting for level marketing.
Obviously, the Python people are not appreciating the genius that we bring.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to do this in Python for you, but I don't want to slow us down. I'm thinking maybe we should go to a language that I'm comfortable with.
That's fine too. If you want to jump, if you want to switch. And then, I mean, when it comes to transposing from one language to another, I just need to see like the structure, what the possibilities are, and then I can transpose it myself later today.
Hey, it worked.
Holy cow.
I'm a genius.
You are, clearly. 20 years paid off right in this moment. You're done. Retire.
All right. Can I restart a Python language server? Of course I can. Is it going to be happy? Let's just pop it open again. Happy? Are you happy? Yeah.
I'm legitimately impressed right now. I'm going to have to like go back and watch the recording. And I was here for the whole thing.
All right. So, I mean, that's filled with my standard out. So let's see. Let's see if we can get that error message again. So we ran Dagger, call, container, echo. So that's interesting. Oh, I haven't.
Okay, chat is blowing up over what you just did right now.
Yeah. I often say that the best developer experience is one where you can be successful with intuition rather than informed
Yes.
decisions. And that is a key example of something that is a good developer experience.
I think that was the highlight of this live stream for me.
Yeah, we may as well just stop now, right? Fuck it. Like, we're done.
Quit on a high note.
Okay, so now we need our at command. We'll do our updates. I just want to see that.
So that flag, explain the flag to me, because I wasn't actually expecting the flag to be apt command. Is that determined based on what you call the argument in the code?
Yeah. So there's a lot of code generation happening behind the scenes here, a lot of magic
Apparently.
stuff. So the way that Dagger works is there's essentially build kit with a GraphQL API in front of it. The GraphQL API tells us like, container with mount, blah, 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 and they're nested all the way down. Gets pretty gnarly. But then they generate the SDKs on the back of the GraphQL definition. And when we have a parameter to a function, the name of that parameter becomes a flag on the command line, and we can also apply the types and stuff like that. So you get all this. They're magical voodoo warriors. I don't know what they do, but it works.
I was impressed looking at the brochure, and now I'm like, somebody needs to rewrite the brochure because this is way better than the brochure says it is.
Yeah, and the pace they're moving at is ridiculous as well. There's so much cool stuff.
Especially for the size, like the Dagger team is. The
right.
Impact per seat, they're killing it.
Yeah, we need to stop catering to their egos, though. We don't want to, let them get too big. So it's crap. I hate it. Why does it not work? Fix it.
I'm not getting paid, so when I say things right now about Dagger, it's legitimately just enthusiasm.
All of my enthusiasm is 100% legitimate. That's for sure. Right. Standard out. What's the error? Invalid selection for command, container echo, response on query, call function. Blech.
Runtime did not complete successfully.
So the return type on this is it expects a container back, where it actually our standard out is returning a string.
A string, yeah.
So if we modify this, because who knew Python could be typed in 2024, whatever. So
that just was released as a fairly new feature in Python, and I know that a lot of early or bleeding edge type projects are still working on adopting that. I wonder if Dagger's already there.
Yeah, I mean, the typing stuff is great. They're also, using all of these attribute annotation stuff as well. It's all very, very slick. As you can see, we now get the output. So that is your first introduction to a Dagger function, how we make changes. Now we actually need to try and do something useful. So next step. I'm going to get
42 minutes in. Let's do something useful now.
Shh. Don't tell people. All right. So you were talking about conductor. There's a conductor container. Can you tell me a bit more about that and how do we bring that into this process?
There is. I'm wondering, do I actually get to write in chat or am I censored here?
There's a private chat between you and I. If you want to chat on YouTube, you have to do that yourself. But you can use.
Okay. All right. So conductor container is the developer environment for the project and the operations environment. It has all the dependencies for like Talos and Pulumi and Dagger and all the Python bits and stuff like that pre-configured with direnv, and Nix is in there if you use that yourself. So I'm thinking that might be the easiest container to run with. It's not small, but no mature Python container is. So it's ghcr.io/containercraft/conductor if we just want to write that in.
With a K?
Uh-huh. Yes, it is. Of course, because everything in Kubernetes land has to start with a K, right? Like my name. I started the trend. Kubernetes just, got there a little slow.
Oops. Docs. All right, so we should be able to do a DAG where we grab a container, and it's ghcr.io container craft.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
it's got it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Holy cow, Copilot, I love you. You're recognizing my work.
Now, because I don't use the Python language ever, I've noticed that it's from's a key word, so our function here is actually from _. Now, you said this has got everything in it, right? So let's do with exec Pulumi version. And let's grab that standard out again, just so we can see that and update our type. Now, what's cool here, we've added a new Python function and annotated it as a function. The docs are our docs help string, which we're going to see in the CLI in a moment. And that's all we need to do to register a new, like a make target or a bash script, which you would typically do, only we're doing it as a Dagger.
Sure.
To the point now where if we run Dagger functions, it should come back. It'll rebuild the SDK and all that in build kit, and then tell us that we have this new function, and then we'll see my horrendous documentation as a description for what that task actually does.
Got it. The conductor container, again, is not small. So do you have a solid download pipe?
How big is it? Are we talking many gig?
A few, yeah.
We may go a different route. Because based on what you're telling me conductor does, I actually think the need for conductor slowly disappears with the Dagger approach. You don't need a monolithic image. Yeah. So, all right, let's run our conductor function. So we're going to do call conductor.
Okay.
We didn't add any parameters. This is just going to run. We should see the output of Pulumi -- version if my connection is able to handle the size of this image.
Yeah. So one thing that I'm curious about here, we're running all of these different things in containers. And I know one of the plans is to create a kind cluster. How does that all work? Because I know that kind results in like a kube config, for example. So does that mean we have to like volume mount the kube config directory in so that it can write that kube config and then we can carry it on into other things? Or are we exporting it as a string and carrying that around? Or what's the plan?
So this is where composition within Dagger becomes really cool. So
Okay.
what we're going to do is we're going to add some more functions. I'll leave that pulling just now, right? But we'll do some
Yeah.
other stuff so that we're not sat here in silence. Plus, you asked a phenomenal question. So let's have...
I did ask a phenomenal question. Thank you for recognizing it.
Yeah, of course. I like to appreciate genius when I see it. So, so I'm adding a new function, right? And we're going to do this step by step as if I was doing this in my own project. And I'm not going to pull this massive image. Instead, let's go back to Alpine Latest.
Cat, find a better way.
And I'm going to do temp ABC, right? So the function is called touch ABC, and we're creating a file called ABC.
Right.
And we'll return this as a Dagger container so that we can use it later on as part of other pipelines, other functions, other whatever.
Okay.
Right? Now, here's where this is good. Is it going to let me do two of these at the same time? Dagger functions.
I like that spelling, Dagger.
Let's see. Yeah, it looks like it's working, so that's good. My editor is happy, Marcos. Well, yeah, we have touch ABC. So call touch ABC, like so. And this should be nice and quick. There's no outputs. We're just returning a container. So blah, blah, blah. Let's finish. There we go. Perfect. So we have this container, which we can now use. Yeah, my editor is happy. Now we come along and go, you know what? We want to do something here. So what I'm actually going to do is say, okay, we need a new function. We're going to say read ABC. And I know this is horribly, horribly contrived.
No, this is the kind of like iterative testing that I do when I'm trying to understand something for the first time. So you are perfectly in my lane for how I learn. I appreciate this a lot.
Awesome. And I'm going to read it from a different image. I'm not going to use Alpine.
It's helpful. Yeah.
So we can do a web exec.
Itching to use that Ubuntu container.
Well, I've pulled it now. So yeah, we're going for it. Now, this isn't going to work just yet, right? Because we have a new base layer. We haven't pulled anything from anywhere else. So let's run it and see that fail. And read ABC. And we'll check on it's pulling.
Oh my god. Yep, it is.
My connection is
CodeSpaces pulls the image pretty quick.
My connection is not going to be fantastic when I'm streaming, but we'll make it work. Right. So now we get an error. That file doesn't exist. So what we could do here is we can say, well, actually, let's assign horrible. I need a better name. I can't do that. I can't do that to myself. We'll just call this a TABC file equals, and we're going to do self touch ABC. So we're going to run that task. Now these will be cached a lot because it's inputs and outputs with build kit and containers. The same way a Docker file works. So the caching is very similar here. But we want to get a file from this output. And then, well, I mean, I could just write that as is to the, I could just take that and then print it, to be honest. But we could mount it into this other container. So we could say with a file, which needs a path and a source. So I'm going to put it in the same location. And it is our ABC file, like so.
I think I'm going to, now that we're doing this part, I think I'm going to have to sleep on it for it to actually fully sink in and then start thinking natively in this paradigm. Because that is a little bit like, I mean, we're layering a lot of concepts here. We're writing Python. The Python runs a ton of stuff in containers. It's not normal Python because a ton of things are happening in the background. Like there is a lot of new neurons that you have to build in your brain for this, huh?
Yeah, it's a shame we don't have 14 hours. Otherwise, we just need to.
Yeah. I'm going to be playing with this after this because very intriguing, and I'm so glad to have this introduction to it. I think it would have taken me a couple months to catch up to this.
No,
On
we're
my
going to
own
do something
study.
useful with this repository. But I'm glad that we're making progress, right?
Yeah.
So let's touch on the thing that your question there. Our touch ABC returns a container.
Yes.
This then becomes a variable that we can just use, right? You know, if you think about building a container image, right? If you want to get something out of it, it's actually very difficult to do because you have
Yeah.
to like exec into it with a local volume out and copy it across. I think it's been a little bit easier now, but it's been a pain point for many, many years. With
That
this,
was a question that I had, that like Dagger container isn't a concept, it's literally an OCI container.
and when you do Dagger, it just becomes a variable that we can introspect. I can request
Okay.
files, I can request directories, I can run more commands inside that container. I can do whatever I want.
And then it inherits the name of the function itself, is what I'm seeing.
Oh, I don't understand that statement.
DAG container from with file, and then you have the temp ABC, and I'm sorry. No, the self touch ABC dot file. That is named based off of the line 39 def touch ABC, right? Or am I?
Yeah, so we're
reading this
calling
wrong?
this function, which gives us
Right.
back a container. We're going inside the container to get a file, and we're just attaching it to this variable here. Now, from there, I could write it to my local host if I want. But instead, what's more likely to, you know, if you think about a workflow, say with Pulumi, right? You run a Pulumi plan, and you want to save that plan to a file so that you can guarantee that's what runs on your next apply. If you do that in Dagger, you could pull that file out and store it somewhere, and then your next function, which runs the Pulumi apply, would mount that plan in and run it against it. And that's what we were doing here. We're saying grab this ABC. Now, we haven't written anything to it. We could change this to be an echo with a redirect or whatever.
Sure.
But we just want it to exist to a point where we can see the empty output here. So we're reaching into a container. We're saying, give me that file. I want to use it in this other container. And then it runs. Another thing we could do here, actually, maybe this is going to be a bit. Let's run this first, and then we'll modify it in a slightly different way.
Yeah, I'm sitting on like a dozen questions that I'm not asking so that I don't continue to derail us.
All questions are good questions. It's less code I have to write in Python. So. Right,
You
it
talk
works.
the whole time. It's a feature. This is great.
We have all these ticks. Now, it didn't really do anything useful, so let's change this, right?
Yep.
Now, what we're going to do is Alpine, and I need to be careful here, actually, because we've got a muscle and glibc thing if I try to do a command from Alpine into Ubuntu. So instead, let's grab, is there an Arch Linux image?
Surely.
There must be, right?
Surely. You're going to do another intuitive thing here, and it's going to work flawlessly.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab Go 1. What's the latest version of Go? 1.7? No.
7 or 8.
Go 1. So to the point where I'm going to run Go.
Well, I'm on 1.21.
2.1, right? Okay, I thought it was 2.1. And 1.2 should work for Marcos. Okay. We're going to run Go version here, and we're going to get back a container. But what I'm actually going to do, we'll get the path for it so I know where it lives. So I assume it's going to be used or bingo. Yeah, so let's keep it more visual, right? We want to see the version number. Okay. So let's grab the Go binary, which I believe is going to be here. It may be wrong. And we're going to mount this in to user bin Go on the Ubuntu container, which has no Go. And we're going to run Go version again.
Thing that I'm curious about here is you could actually do which Go and then use that output as a string to inform the path that you hard-coded in on 44 and 45.
I totally could. Yes.
Okay. Just practicing concepts here out loud.
All right. Let's get standard out first.
1.2 doesn't exist, so I think we need to drop 1.21. It looks like Marcos is backing us up here.
Well, he set us up for failure first and then fixed it, so that's okay. So let's run touch ABC. Touch. Hey, we've got conductor as well, so we can make some progress on the real work. But let's see the output of Go version, and then we're going to pull that binary out, stick it into the Ubuntu container, and run Go version again, which I just think is very cool. Oh, Go 1 doesn't exist.
Yeah. You might go latest.
That's a Go line. That's what it's going to be, isn't it?
Possibly.
Yeah, there we go.
There it is.
You didn't catch that, Marcos. Come on. It's supposed to be a team.
He's not even here to defend himself, and you're like...
I know, he's trying to stick me on one bookworm now. But yeah, we're all good. He's also talking about a really... Oh, I just showed the wrong comment there. He's talking about a really cool feature we could do with Dagger, and hopefully we have time to get into it. But we actually have the ability to go inside of our build pipeline and debug things live.
I need to see that. That is necessary for success.
Yeah, debugging is a very important skill. And that's one of the challenges.
Actually, you've got Podman here. Are you, is Dagger happy with Docker and Podman interchangeably? Like, is there anything unique there?
You need the alias. So under the hood, at least when you run a Dagger init, when it creates that build kit engine, the Dagger engine, I believe it does shell out to Docker to get that set up. So I did have to alias that Podman to Docker for that to work, but everything else is okay. And I do run Podman in compatibility mode with Docker. So
I feel like our audience knows as much, if not more than us right now, because apparently they're telling us all that they're speeding ahead and like answering the stuff that we're going to reveal here.
Right. Well, we got... Oh, yeah, because I didn't update my type. I wonder if I can just leave that off. No, let's be good citizens.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Let's not fall back
good
to
hygiene
the lazy
here.
typing. Exactly. Yes. Now, this should be pretty quick. It's just regenerating the SDK because we changed the type. And we should see Go version 122. Perfect.
Cool.
Let's take off that standard out. Go back to a Dagger container, which means that our second thing here will work. If we returned a string, we would no longer be able to query that container itself, which is when you really get into composition, right? Now, this is where I would just say, well, let's have another function where we say def touch ABC output, something like that. And that would just be returning that. So now we have a new function if we need to it, but we always want to keep that container available for other things. So good code hygiene becomes very important, especially for composition. But let's not get too meta with the code right now. So now we can do a read ABC, which is going to execute Go on an Ubuntu container, which has never seen Go in its life. Right, read ABC. Is this making sense? I know we're not really getting into anything particularly useful, but...
We are, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I know that we kind of suggested we would be doing actual Kargo work here, but I feel like we both have to be on the same page to actually make progress there, and you are doing a phenomenal job teaching.
Oh, thank you. So our container file failed, so that is not the path of Go. So let's say read Go, or in fact, let's call it which Go, where we're going to execute another command. I love Copilot, it's so good. And we'll run which Go, and that will give me the path for Go, which will then fix that mount statement, and we'll see us passing artifacts from job to job in a code first fashion, which is sweet.
So it's user local go bin go.
I want the container to tell me.
I know. You're doing a brilliant job coding your way to the answer.
I know.
And I'm just like Docker run exec.
the Dagger team are yelling at me going, just show terminal. And I'm like, yeah, but composition is important too. We want to show people how to do it. But yeah, we should show terminal. So let's just make sure we pull out the right binary. Let's go for read ABC, and then we will use terminal.
So one of the nice things that I'm seeing here about, for example, using the code itself to find the path is later on down the road, if you switch out a container that has a different path, that's just going to like dynamically adjust itself, and you don't have to go in and fix a bunch of hard-coded stuff. So that's pretty cool by itself.
I mean, that should have worked. I'm not going to fix that. That's it now, just complaining that Go root doesn't exist and some stuff. But, we did get Go into that Ubuntu container, and it did attempt to run. To me, that is good enough.
Okay.
So let's do terminal. So when we have, this one returns a container. We have touch ABC. So if we do Dagger call, and we'll look at the help here, you'll see all of our functions, and we've got all the parameters. Is terminal not documented? Okay. We'll go to touch ABC and do terminal.
Tribal knowledge. Reet.
So what's actually happened here is that Dagger call touch ABC returns a container. So when we add the terminal, that gives us the ability to get a shell inside of that returned container. If we returned anything else, it wouldn't happen.
So now, I want to compare this to what I have been using. I've been using GitHub Actions for a lot of my CI/CD, and I use Act CLI. That's a little CLI that runs GitHub Actions locally in a container. And when things go wrong and it's a very long workflow, you have to wait sometimes 15, 20 minutes in between iterations to see if you actually succeeded at, fixing or enhancing whatever you're doing correctly. And it is not accessible for debugging. So this actually lets you jump into your pipeline at the point that it's breaking and sort out the problems, like hands-on. And that is my style. Like if I can't get hands-on with my own infrastructure and build and things like that, I feel like my hands are tied. I love this and I'm going to overuse it, and that's so cool.
Yeah, I think the Dagger team are using Dagger themselves, of course, and that dogfooding comes a lot of strong developer experience benefits with every release, right? They're always making things that little bit nicer, a little bit easier.
Yep.
But Marco says the problem with my help was I needed the function first, and that should have told me the terminal extra. Cool. You can actually run any of Dagger's functions. So
got it. There is a lot of help there to read, and I love that generates all dynamically based on your functions.
Yeah,
it's kind of insane.
Yeah, you can even retrieve the file. We could do that just on the command line if we wanted to. So.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I think that covers all of the basics. Now, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we've got 25 minutes left of the time that we kind of set aside for this.
If we can build the kind cluster, then that'll give me enough boilerplate to proceed from there. And I kind of have a goal of seeing if I can get the whole build and deploy to run by 1 o'clock my time. So that would give me something like 2.5 hours. So if we can get a kind cluster built, I can run with it from there solo.
Okay, so we're going to have to work out the container within a container part. So I'm going to ask Marcos, so I know who's been doing the KCS stuff. I think it was Marcos. Sorry, Marcos, if I'm speaking and assigning you something that you haven't done. But let's get the boilerplate for the kind stuff working with your config. And then hopefully Marcos can drop in some context for how we make sure that that's actually going to work.
Sure. So for this, you might want to open the make file, because the make file, I do use make kind a lot. And there's a few commands in there. Yep, there it is. Okay, so you're looking at lines 163 to 166 is the important stuff.
Do we need the volumes?
If we comment out those volumes from our kind config, then we don't. But as long
Because
as
with
that's in the
Dagger,
kind config, we do.
we wouldn't use Docker volumes. We would use Dagger volumes and put them into the containers as required. Although then they have to get propagated into King.
Well, that's cool.
Let's work this out. So let's take a look at your kind config first.
In the hack directory, because, aptly named.
Yeah, that seems to be, it's a Go thing, right? That hack directory. It's never something I've done a lot of, but I know.
I have them littered around everywhere. It's probably not great hygiene.
Okay, so what do you use these mounts for? This is just an image cache, right?
Yeah, I was just using it to cache images because it is a Kubernetes project with a ton of different operators and Helm charts and things like that. And building and destroying and building is a lot of work if you're downloading images every single time. So I was volume mounting basically local file image caches so that it can survive multiple clustered build and destroys.
Okay. I'm going to try something. Let's come back to kind in just a moment, right? So okay. I don't know. With Python, can I drop this down? Is that valid Python? No.
You should be able to do that within the parentheses itself. So if you go, yeah.
What, I have to do it that way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would work.
But there must be a way for me to do it, like...
Not that I know of.
All right, we'll just deal with the really long lines. What I want to do is grab...
Oh no, Marco says kind will be a bit painful to make work. So I'm really curious how that really works out. And it requires Docker CLI. So I have Docker CLI in the conductor container, but actually running the conductor container requires a lot of extra flags and things that I do have documented if we want to figure that out. But
well, I was going to try this first.
Super pretty.
I was wondering, because if we can get Docker dines to work, we could just stick the kind Go binary inside of that from the kindest image, and it may work. So I'm going to try see if I can run Docker Hello World with dined inside of our Dagger pipeline.
Okay.
And see what happens. So there's a lot of and see what happens today.
Yeah, apparently. We are mastering the see what happens today.
Yeah. So let's see.
I feel like we've been succeeding, rather you've been succeeding so well for an hour and 10 minutes now. And we're going to run out of luck at some point. We're really either that or you should go to a casino after this if that's a thing you do.
Yeah, I'm not allowed in casinos anymore.
Okay, that's a story for later.
A self-imposed ban. They sell whiskey and they've got poker. It's not good.
They know that magic combination works.
Marcos says, I may need privileged, and he's got a point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely some things.
Although that did say that it couldn't get a socket. And then no, this is probably because I'm not actually using Docker, right?
Oh yeah, good God, we are stacking the unicorn. Yeah.
Is there a Podman Temp?
Oh my god, no.
What? I just on my container run podman podman. There
Oh
is.
gosh. The insanity inception going on at the moment.
Oh no, that doesn't.
I feel like this is proof that the internet should not work and somehow does.
So Marcos is saying we have to start that first. So we have to start a Docker daemon. Here, I've got an idea. Right. This is going to be awesome. So I hope.
David
So
said, "Hey, I've got an idea."
So we need to start Docker D, right? And I spelled privilege wrong. Let's just ignore that. As a service, this might be just absolute crazy, but I'm going to go for it anyway.
Insane.
Create. So Dagger has this other really cool thing where you can run things as services, and then you can launch other containers that can then consume them and speak to them, allowing you to replace Docker Compose.
Marcos is getting excited. Okay, yeah, there's a similar thing in GitHub Actions, of course, where you can start like what if you need like a database or something like that for your pipeline to run. It has the concept of starting service containers as well.
So now we could say, we could just run down again, only this time what we actually want to do is a Docker run. Oh, I hate using that shorthand syntax, it bugs me. Container run --rm hello world, right? So that should give us, and we don't need the thing, right? But we have to tell it where that Docker host is. So if we do with environment variable, Docker host, and then we need to grab the service endpoint by doing self.createDowned endpoint.
Okay, and apparently we're going to need elevated Dagger privileges on line 53. I'm actually curious what that means. If that means like Dagger has sudo or something within our current environment.
What's the Docker port? To oh, come on.
2376.
That sounds right. Thank you. I was hoping Copilot would drop it in. All right, that should give us an endpoint.
75.
To C75. All right. Okay, so this is going to create a service running a Docker daemon. We're then going to add an environment variable, set our Docker host to that endpoint, and run Docker. I'm totally making this up as I go along, so I'm going to check the chat to see. Okay, with exec. So the Docker D needs some sort of parameter. So let's just, and secure root capabilities. Thank you. And the one that we're setting here, so we're not using positionals, is just args. So args, and then we can also do insecure true. Is that right, Marcos? I mean, let's try it. He can fix my terrible code later. So now we should be able to run create king cluster. Dagger call create king cluster. So now we're actually going to see multiple containers happening with our Dagger output here. So it's going to compile that, generate the new SDK, because obviously lots of things have changed. And we should see it spin up that service for us running Docker D. Oh, no.
Class. So we didn't get a string. We got something else.
What's endpoint then? What is a coroutine? Any string. What have they got here? Is there like a toString or something?
Quotes. Wait, are we missing wrapping?
Oh, wait. Does this
Is the
need to be a
port
string?
supposed to be a string? Ah, okay.
No, it's an int.
No, it says that.
It's async. Oh, I don't know how to do async await in Python. Can I just do await? And then set an async function. How do you do async functions? Def async? No.
All right, save us, chat.
Def.
Or you might pull the await off of. I don't know.
Make this async.
Oh, it's async def, not def async.
Yeah, Copilot's getting me there. All right. Thank you, chat and Copilot. Sweet.
And then
No errors. Thank you, Jeremy and Lev, all jumping in there. Ooh. Oh. All right. So
create kind cluster.
So I think I've got yeah, that looks okay. Create downed endpoint.
From address.
Where's the standard out coming from? I didn't think we were here.
Oh,
because we've got an async function now, so we're going to have to await this one too, right? And he also said we may have to make this one async. So
yeah.
let's just make everything async. Like, should have used TypeScript. Actually, I'm quite enjoying the Python. I mean, I'm not enjoying these really long lines, and I wish I knew how to format these. I don't have a Python format.
Yeah, I'm gonna get really obsessive with formatting and apply that on my own time. But
all right, so no endpoint. So that returns the service. Oh, I'm going to have to await, right? Because we just made that other one async. And then await. I think async causes more problems than it's solving. Service can't be used in an await. All right, okay. Which one? I'm going to have to read the types now. Endpoint. So create dines returns a coroutine. So we do have to await this, and that's because we made this one async, right? An endpoint returns one.
Let's see. Jeremy dropped an example. Return dat container alpine directory with exact bash.
Thank you, Jeremy. Let's have a look. I'm not sure what that doesn't solve our async thing, right?
It's not grokking with what's in my head yet.
Oh, you're showing me the formatting thing. Right. Okay. Okay, create dined was never awaited. I do await it. Oh, wait. Oh, wait. All right. What we have here is a parenthesis problem. Service can't be used. Right. Marco says this doesn't need to be. So I think we're making this difficult for ourselves now. So create dined is fine, and we just want to await the endpoint. So, I mean, that shouldn't be needed, right? But I'm sure we tried this first. That didn't work.
Got to be some prior art floating around somewhere on creating a kind cluster with Dagger.
Ooh, look, things and stuff. So I tried to speak to Docker or Dyn. That's amazing. But it says no such host. So it got our endpoint, it resolved it to an IP address, and then failed. Now this might just be
So
web
there
service
is
okay.
something in the Daggerverse specific for creating a kind cluster. Is this where we get to show off some of the ecosystem?
Yes.
And it looks like there's quite a few parameters that we can run with.
Oh, yeah, I'm being silly. We've created a service, but we haven't given this container access to it.
Okay.
There we go. Oh yeah, and we can alias it. We can just call it down, and then we provide the service, not the endpoint. Okay, like so. They're trying to fix all my bugs for me. So here we could do down 2, 3. Was it 7.5?
Yeah.
All right, let's give that a bash. And you're right, there is the Daggerverse. We should definitely take a look at that. But I really want to get this kind cluster working. Really, really want to get it working. Oh.
I actually like this because it looks like I'm interested in deprecating the project support for kind in favor of the equivalent with Talos, where you're running Talos either in containers or virtual machines locally. And I'm seeing how, even though there's not like a built-in feature that plays completely nice with starting a kind cluster locally without like kube proxy and things like that, so that I can CI all of my Cilium integration. But I feel like Dagger
I thought we had it. Oh well.
lets me cover those bases and accommodate some of the conditions.
Sorry, I didn't mean to yell over you there.
No, you're fine. Excitement is always welcome.
All right, let's go back to service endpoint port 2375, and this needs awaited. So you want to deprecate kind and do it another way? That's what you were saying before I really interrupted you. Sorry.
It's going to be the same thing. Like it's Kubernetes in Docker, but it's Talos specifically, and that will simplify my code base a lot, because right now I'm accommodating different like Helm values and things like that depending on which Kubernetes I'm targeting.
Nice. All right. Well, Marco says I was almost there, but I need a web exposed port because Dagger uses that for the health check. All right, so that's how it knows whether to restart that service or not. We'll get there. I really want to make this work, just so that we have a very cool Kubernetes cluster thing where you can start to then experiment and play with it. And I know you said you were going to maybe get rid of kind, but
well, all of this will probably transpose pretty closely to the Talos version, because again, it is Kubernetes in Docker. It's just slightly different than kind. All right, we only got 4 minutes to save the world. I mean, create a kind cluster.
I'm missing a parameter for Docker D, aren't I? me pop open a Docker D.
Cut the red wire.
Apparently you need a config file.
It looks like Marcos is pointing out that we need to set the address to like 0000 would work.
Oh, thank you, Marcos. Dash host.
Which is localhost. So
is this the one?
I have hope. Marco says it's the one. We will all be wrong together.
So the service worked.
Yep. Alias as DIND exited. We have response from query, input, blah.
Is that just my command is wrong? Let's get standard error. I think we're actually getting a real error message from the Docker trying to execute that container.
This is when we could hit the terminal command.
Yeah, totally, actually. All right, let's get in there. So let's just return a Dagger container. Now this should give us a container with the Docker CLI and an environment variable pointing it to our Docker service. I've never used a terminal command with backend services, so I'm assuming this is just going to work. But
Spoke too soon. Why did we have to pick a difficult starting line?
yeah, I don't know why that one's failing.
You can blame me.
Invalid selection for command terminal response.
Oh, actually, I didn't even catch this, and I probably should have. Marcos said we have hosts, plural. There we go.
Yeah, but I mean, I
That
should still have got this,
should have
right?
given us a terminal. Unless, I mean, Docker wouldn't like a flag that's not real.
Yeah, the service was happy. It was passing
Yeah,
itself
it
to.
said so.
1 minute. And I'm running terminal. We were closer with hosts, weren't we?
Oh, it doesn't like the insecure access right now.
Oh, it's working.
Holy moly.
And I'm pulling standard error. Although we'll now see that this should be nice and quick because most of this is going to be cached. And right on 6:30, right when we said we'd finish.
The
we didn't really.
that will work.
Yeah, we didn't do the things that we said we were going to do. But I do think that we have hopefully taken you on a bit of a Dagger journey and showed you the power, flexibility of having
Show me the power.
all of this as code. So I'm pretty chuffed with that. There we go. Look at that.
Holy cow.
We just spun up a kind cluster inside of a Dagger function.
Okay, this is like internet high five here. Yes.
I'm going to leave you with that to play with it. If you're
if you want
happy
to push that up
I would
to the
love
repo.
for us to pick this back up in a few weeks and
Yeah.
make that next step into running the Pulumi as part and provisioning to that kind cluster.
Well, it might be that like I push this code a little bit further because I'm very motivated to drop that makefile stuff, and I have to rewrite the makefile or replace it before I merge back into main.
Yeah.
So it might be that I push this a bit further, and then we just spend a while roasting my Dagger code, and you're like, Kat, how much did you use ChatGPT? Because you're looking like a trench coat right now.
All right, I'm going to get that pushed. We will reconvene once you've pushed it a little bit further forward. And maybe
Great.
what we'll do, depending on how far you get, is we'll be looking at refactoring. How do we clean it up? How do we make it shareable? How do we publish it to the Daggerverse? Because you know what? People are going to want a kind cluster in their Dagger pipelines. We can share that.
Absolutely.
So awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you to everyone who watched. Any final words before I say goodbye?
Bravo. I feel like that was a great way to show off your skill and do more than talking on a live stream. So really, you went into it with a lot of blind faith, and I feel like you're coming out of it victorious. So round of applause from everybody.
Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you for
We will
having me
chat
on.
soon. Yeah, awesome. Speak to you soon. Everyone else, have a wonderful day. We'll see you all next time. Bye.
Together we won't die. Rocco's gonna miss you for a little while. Never fear the return, rock it with a smile. Join the crew again, don't you take the fall. Stand tall, raise your voice, let's conquer it all. Did you dig the session? Did you ride the wave? Programming like mad seems a bit too brave, but here we are standing in the digital haze. Tell your friends about it, send the love it plays. Share it out loud, spread it like a fire. Hit that subscribe button, let it take you higher. Smash that like, show the love, don't lie. Come back for more, together we won't die. Sharing games we play, we hack into the core. Rocco's in the mix, always wanting more. From the shadows we rise, break the codes we know. See you next time, friends, let the love show. Did you dig the session? Did you ride the wave? Programming like mad seems a bit too brave, but here we are standing in the digital haze. Tell your friends about it, send the love it pays. Share it out loud, spread it like a fire. Hit that subscribe button, let it take you higher. Smash that like so the love don't lie. Come back for more, together we won't die. Rocco's gonna miss you for a little while. Never fear the return, rock it with a smile. Join the crew again, don't you take the fall. Stand tall, raise your voice, let's conquer it all.